I see a lot of people asking what is going to happen to the American left now that Donald Trump has his mandate, quote unquote mandate. I mean, one thing's for sure is he won in a more convincing fashion than 2016. So a lot of people are freaking out. And again, as I have prefaced this channel before, a lot of people watch me watch me internationally. They're watching me from other countries. So I think a lot of questions come from that standpoint, like what happens from here on out. And the first thing I'm going to say, and maybe people don't want to hear it, is I think the American left is going to be completely fine. In 2026, just like any other midterm election, there will probably be a backlash on the incumbent president. And it's pretty likely that, I'm going to say pretty likely, but we don't know for sure. It's pretty likely that the Democrats regain control over the House. They probably won't win the Senate, but who knows? Who knows how big the backlash will be? We first got to see really what happens in 2 years, right? And then in 2028, Donald Trump is not going to run for re-election. That'll be his 2 terms, and he'll be way too old to run anyways. He'll be 84? Is he 80 right now? So he's not going to run again, and then everyone gets a fresh start, and that will be that's going to give a lot of 2016 vibes for the election. That's going to be, the Republicans will be trying to find a new leader, which more than likely they'll have somebody by then, I think. I mean, J.D. Vance will be like the de facto Republican. He'll probably be the front runner, but who knows? It all depends on if Donald Trump does a good job in the eyes of America or in the eyes of the Republican Party. If he does, then J.D. Vance will probably be the pick. If he doesn't, then who knows? But yeah, 2028's election will be a lot like 2016, and honestly, the left in America needs to have it needs to be like a grind. It needs to be rough. It needs to be a tough primary. There needs to be a lot of people that run. I went back and watched a couple of the old debates during the during the Republican primary of 2016. That was when Donald Trump was, rising to his status. That was before he became the Republican nominee, obviously before he ran against Hillary Clinton. That's still when he was fighting other Republicans for that nominee position. Honestly, I think the Democrats need to have a rough, they need to have a rough primary like that. Not like 2020. That, in a hindsight, hindsight is 2020. Funny, 2020. But the Democratic primary of 2020 really felt like it more felt like the establishment Democratic Party versus Bernie Sanders, and clearly that kind of was the case since I've already talked about it on this channel before. It was just to make sure that Bernie doesn't win. But I really hope that in 2028 they have a just grueling, almost 2016 fashion Republican primary, like with those debates. It needs to be rough because there's really who knows who is going to be chosen, honestly. I mean, I don't think it's going to be Kamala Harris again. You can't really pick her again. She lost. Can't be Hillary Clinton. I mean, Joe Biden's too old. Barack Obama, I feel, he can't run, but I don't think Michelle Obama has any interest. I mean, it's going to be really open, and it's going to be anyone's game. And honestly, we probably won't even really know until the debates start happening. There's going to be a whole bunch of theories about who will be the Democratic nominee in 2028, but we can't even begin to guess because there's going to be so much that happens before that moment. And even before, like the exact moment before the first debate, we still don't really know who it's going to be. So it's going to be very interesting. And I really hope that those primaries, I mean, that's really what is going to, the left is in a very weird spot in the U.S. right now. Obviously, they're licking their wounds, and there's a whole bunch of chaos, and they're doing a lot of postmortems, and I don't think there's really going to be much of a change yet until they can rally around a certain figure. That's my opinion. Like right now, everyone's blaming all these different things, and there's not going to be one unifying factor on why Kamala Harris lost and what the left should be until they have a face of the party, which will come out of that Democratic primary in 2027, 2028, because they should probably start doing debates they probably will. There will probably be people announcing that they're going to be running. Well, there definitely will be in 2027, and hopefully they start grinding it down and figuring out what they want the new direction to be, really, because who knows? I mean, the party has kind of been decimated. Not really. I will be honest. That was the other thing I wanted to say here is I feel like it wasn't a complete landslide. It was an electoral swing state landslide in the Congress. I mean, when looking at it on paper, I mean, the conservatives and Republicans, they have, Trump won, so he has the executive branch. They have the Senate. They have the Congress. They have the Supreme Court. So it looks like it's a complete landslide. But if you really look at the numbers, I mean, she didn't win by, I've been seeing this number get thrown around. She lost by 200,000 votes, the Electoral College. Because if she got 200,000 and it's like 200,000 and 25,000, like 250,000 votes, 250,000 votes in just the blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, then those would have flipped those three states. She would have barely eked out the Electoral College, and we'd be in a completely different universe right now. But I don't think it was as big of a landslide. So people that are freaking out about it, that's just my opinion. I don't think you really need to freak out that much about it. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see the ideas that get thrown around for the next 4 years. I hope that my personal hope is that it goes down to whoever does become the face of the party kind of goes back to more economic issues, because at the end of the day, that is what people care about. But we don't know the economic situation of the U.S. in 4 years, and it's really going to depend on how the Trump presidency goes this second term. If in the eyes of most Americans, the economy is doing better, then likely J.D. Vance will probably win. If in the eyes of a lot of Americans, I mean, there's more factors than just the economy, but at the end of the day, that's pretty much what it comes down to. And you know what's funny is I was learning how that's not an American thing. I mean, that's like pretty much any country. That is why apparently every single incumbent party has been voted out in almost every Western country, in all the European nations, in all of North America. If you had an election this year, then the incumbent party lost voter share. And it comes down to basically inflation to everybody. I mean, it's literally for all democracies. It's all the economy, and everyone's dealing with inflation. And the other parts of the world are dealing with inflation way worse than us. Way, way worse than us. I will say one little thing that I wanted to add. I feel like, and I noticed this also is being said, this is being touted in other countries as well, is there's this argument that inflation is not that bad because inflation is now down to only 2%. Woo, what are you talking about? Why are people mad? Inflation's only at 2%. Well, yeah, inflation is now rising by 2%, but it was rising at 4%, 5%, 6% for months and months there. So it's weird when I keep seeing that argument made by both political aisles, depending on what country you're coming from, that now that inflation's going down. That is the most disingenuous argument I've ever seen. Like, okay, eggs are now $25, but now eggs are only slightly rising in price. Okay, eggs are still $25. I don't care. Like, why are you flexing that, but now inflation's only going up by 2%. Okay, so now they're only going to be $26 next year instead of $27. Well, that doesn't help me at all. That's still ridiculously overpriced. So I don't know why that argument keeps getting thrown around, but I definitely wanted to talk about that. So anyways, that is my prediction for what will go down, at least in terms of the response. But we don't really know what's going to happen. You don't really know what's going to happen in politics, in geopolitics. There's so many different events that can occur that's out of everyone's hands. I mean, COVID is something that no one could have ever predicted in 2016. There's something as simple as like storms, like there's always a major hurricane that hits, and the incumbent party can fumble that, and the reaction to that can be devastating. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen, what the world will throw at you. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's a lot of things. Sometimes, Russia declares war on Ukraine, and now all of a sudden there's that happening. That so there's no way we can predict what's going to happen. I will say that there has been it feels like there's more of a general interest in what's going on again. just from the performance of my channel and the performance of other channels, it seems like this is pulling people back into an interest in geopolitics, because, well, there's going to be a lot of moves that get made now. That's what at least Donald Trump is claiming, whether it comes from Israel or Ukraine and Russia. So there does, I mean, when it comes to Trump and like NATO, for instance, there's a whole lot going on there. There's Ukraine and Russia, and then there's also like, does he pull back on NATO? Does European countries start to, rebuild their own military? Is there this own NATO military that begins to form now? But there's a whole lot of, so there's a whole lot of factors that are coming into play here that I think are pulling people back into being kind of interested in this stuff. I think with Joe Biden as president, a lot of people kind of just went to sleep on this topic, or on the topic of international politics, maybe domestic politics for your own domestic country, but international on a world scale. I think people just pulled back into their own corners, whereas now people are starting to look around again like there was in 2016 through 2020. Obviously, you had COVID at the height of it all, pulling people back on what's going on with the rest of the world. But yeah, I definitely have noticed that with performance, people just being generally more interested. And I think this is a good thing to be interested in regardless. I mean, I'm always interested in this stuff. I love seeing what geopolitical analysts have to say on the news or on YouTube and see what's going on in the world. I think it's a good thing. And a lot of people from other countries do that, but not a whole lot of Americans do that. And I don't think maybe more Americans will be generally more interested in international relations, but probably not. There's such an innate thing when it comes to the U.S., when it comes to Americans, just to not care about what's going on in the rest of the world. Like maybe we care about what's going on in Mexico, specifically the border, but that's about it. Maybe Canada. Outside of that, man, there's a whole lot of Americans that just don't care, and that's kind of sad. But hopefully we can draw some people more in. I mean, I've taken the white pill on this. I do think that overall technology will connect a lot of Americans to the rest of the world and world politics and things like that. As Americans start to get to know people from other countries, if you're just gaming from another country from around the world, another person from another country around the world, that's going to make you more interested and just getting to know people, traveling more, of course. So technology definitely does bring the world, I think, together, wanting, and gets people interested. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. We'll see what happens.